Hey everyone, it's Smitha. Today I'm really excited because I'm going to be telling you all about a mini palette that I made in collaboration with Shine by SD. Shine by SD is a Canadian indie brand, and I've talked about them several times on my channel and my pages. They make some of the sparkliest eyeshadows in my collection, and what I'm really excited about here is that this is a curation that has 5 shades. I really enjoy small palettes, and I love that it's going to be at what I would consider for indie brands to be a very competitive price point. It is going to be retailing for $33. It'll be available on Sunday, February 15th, and I'll put all of the additional launch details in the description box, and you can also see more content on Instagram and TikTok. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to focus on doing some overhead swatches, eye swatches, and some looks. Here's a little bit of a closer look at the palette. It does include the palette component, and all of these shades are single shadows that are magnetic. I've had some questions about the texture of these shadows. They are not emollient whatsoever. In that way, I do think that they are going to work well for a variety of skin types. And I would recommend using some type of tacky primer with these shades, especially when you use them on the lids. And I would give the same advice for any type of very sparkly shadow. I'm very happy with the versatility of the shades that we have in here. We have an iridescent and several shades that are definitely very topper-like. You can layer these shades or wear them all on their own, kind of built up. Definitely lots of options. This is the shade Luminescence, and it is an iridescent shadow that has multicolored icy sparkles. You've got some silver, you've got some blue, and a little bit of pale green and gold in here as well. The multicolored sparkles that you have in here truly make it so versatile. It's a great inner corner shade, and it's also a great shade to use over the other shades if you want to just change the way they look a little bit, add a little bit of icy sparkle. I was so happy that we could include a shade like this in the palette. The next shade we have is Mist, and when I first saw the shade, I simply was not prepared to see how glowy it looks when it's swatched. And it has a marbled appearance in the pan. It's another icy shade, but this one is so interesting. It's got blue, silver, and intense icy golden sparkle. I find this to be an absolutely electrifying shade. This is definitely not a traditional blue shadow, but every single one of the shadows in here does have blue sparkle in them. I think this may be one of my favorite shades. Okay, the next shade we have is called Moonglass, and this is another really interesting shade. It has a sort of pale champagne base. It does have blue sparkles in it, but it also has some fine holographic sparkles as well. It's not a full-on holographic shade, but that holographic reflect does give it somewhat of a rainbow sparkle. And I gotta say, the new holographic formula from Shine by SD in general is a really great one in my opinion. So I am happy that a couple of the shades in here have a little bit of that pigment, gives them a little extra sparkle. The next shade we have is called Whimsical, and this is probably the shade that's closest in the palette to being a straight shimmer. I really love the tone of blue of this shadow. I would describe it as a mid-toned kind of cool blue with silver sparkles. I really love glowy blue shades like this, and I am just so happy that we have a tone of blue like this included in the palette. And last but not least, we have the shade Tranquil. This is a beautiful bluey teal, and it has holographic reflect throughout. I really enjoy a teal shimmer, and it does have something a little extra special with that holographic reflect. This is the deepest shimmer in the palette, and I personally think that this shade in particular is a really beautiful one and done shadow, or just a shade that's great for if you're going for something a little bit deeper and more dramatic. But I do like that we have both some lighter options and some deeper options. And here's what all of the shades in the palette look like swatched my arm. Lots of sparkle and lots of options for a variety of looks. Okay, for my first look, I want to do something a little bit more deep and dramatic with that teal shade. I am dipping into Cooltrals, and I'm just going to do somewhat of a teal smoky eye. So dipping into that shade Shadow, which is kind of like a gray black. I think these mattes are in general just so easy to work with, really buildable, and especially helpful when you're starting off with a deep shade like this. Cooltrals is definitely one of my favorite palettes from Cosmic Beauty. I love that they have so many palettes that have a lot of blues in them. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I just want to soften up the edges a little bit, and I'm going to use that matte called Cooltral to do that. Actually, I think I'm going to use Intuition, just something that's a little bit closer in tone to the shade Shadow, just a little bit. Priming the lid with the Clionadh Shimmer Enhancer. Just going to put a little bit on the inside of the lid and a little bit on the lower lash line. Now I'm going to go in with the shade Tranquil. This one has hollow in it, which I love because the newer hollows from Shine by SD are such a step up, in my opinion. Okay, and with a smaller brush, just going to pick up a little bit of Tranquil and run it along the lower lash line. All right, now dipping into this beautiful iridescent called Luminous. I'm going to put a little bit on the inner corner. Wow. And a little bit on the brow bone. And then just to be slightly excessive, I'm going to put a little tiny bit layered over Tranquil on the very inner portion of the lid. And here is the first completed look. All right, for the second look, I'm going to start off by going in with this shade Intuition and just using that as my transition shade. I'm keeping the matte work pretty simple so that I can really give the shimmers their spotlight. Putting a little bit of Intuition along the lower lash line. And then in the inner corner, I'm going to deepen up with this beautiful, rich blue matte called Midnight. This shade is really pigmented, so I think I'm going to have to be going in, yeah, with a very light hand. And connecting it down to the lower lash line. Then I'm just going to take the shade Cooltrals to soften up the edges a little bit. Priming the lid. As my lid shade, I am going to use Whimsical, which is this beautiful kind of cool toned blue. Ooh, that is so glowy, and it goes so well with those mattes from the Cooltrals palette. And then taking a little bit on a smaller brush, running it under the lash line. And for this look, for my highlighting shade, I'm going to use Moonglass, which is basically like a very pale champagne, but it has lots of multicolored sparkles in it, including blue. It's a pretty interesting, cool shade. This would be a really pretty lid shade too. And then a little bit on the inner corner. Here is the second completed look. Okay, for my third look, I really want this beautiful shimmer mist to be the star of the show. I'm gonna start off with this Cosmic Beauty palette, Starlight Society. This came out toward the end part of last year, and I'm gonna use this deep blue matte called Astrology and just create a simple halo shape. Just going to put this shade in the four corners of the eye. A little bit in the outer corner and in the lower lash line. Then just to soften up the edges, I'm going to go back into Cooltrals and use this shade Intuition. Priming the lid. And now we're going to go in with Mist. I think this might very well be my favorite shade. Just going to show you again what it looks like swatched in the back of my hand. It is just so incredibly shifty, glowy. Just love it. Here it is on my fingertip. Put it in the center of the lid. Just picked up a little bit with a smaller brush. I'm going to place it on the lower lash line. And then I think this is honestly a great highlighting shade, so I'm going to also use it as my brow bone shade and as my inner corner shade. I added some liner and mascara, and here is the third completed look. All right, and for the fourth look, I'm just gonna do something really simple. I wanna take this blue liner from Cloudicos. This is Night of Creation. This is actually one of their older blue shades, and I'm just gonna use it all along the upper and lower lash line and just smudge it out. All right, and all over the lid, I'm gonna take this shade Luminous, which is that iridescent shade that has multicolored sparkles, and I'm just gonna dust it literally all over the lid. I added a little bit of mascara, and here is the fourth completed look. It's basically just a glorified one and done shade, but when you use that Cloudicos liner, just gives it a little something extra special. All right, this video is obviously a little bit different because I'm sort of reviewing something that I created, but my hope in making this video is just to show you some of the fun things that you could do with this palette if you do end up picking it up, or just if you want some inspo for creating some looks in general. Just you being here and watching my video and leaving me a comment is such tremendous support. So thank you so much. And if you do decide to pick this palette up, I would love to hear in the comments or just in general what you think about it. And if you're trying Shine by SD for the very first time, I'm really excited for you because I think that this is going to be a really great introduction to the brand. Again, thank you so much for your support and for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.